Board of Trustees. Secretary, would you please call the roll?
Trustee Chakai?
Present.
Trustee Lesko?
Here.
Trustee Margolis?
Present.
Trustee Mesernek?
Here.
Trustee Stirling?
Present.
Trustee Verma is present. Student Representative Ruchiri Anki Radicali? Student Representative Hall?
Can everybody please rise and say the pledge?
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America
and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Everyone should have in front of them the agenda. Are there any questions or changes?
Yes. Given the fact that Carl and Deb are here for a presentation of the financial update, I'd like to move the Treasury's report up to coincide with that presentation, because they will overlap.
How about if we swap 6 and 8? Give the students a chance to go through first.
That's as long as, yeah, that's,
Okay, so let's make the student representative report item 6. We'll move the item 6 presentation down to the 8 slot. I would also like to request a change that item 11B, the reference service observation, be moved up to the president's report as item 9B. Any other changes? I'll accept the motion to accept the revised agenda.
Move to approve as modified.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Thank you. Okay, then we're going to move to item 4, the consent agenda. We have on pages 3, 4, and 5, warrant 525, which covers both funds 268 and 269. And then on pages 6 through 10, we have the minutes from the November 19th meeting. Any questions, comments? Hearing none, I'll accept the motion to approve.
move.
Second.
Any discussion? None necessary. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, we've approved the warrants and the minutes. Item 5 is correspondence. I don't see any on the agenda.
There are none tonight.
Good, then we will move. Then we'll move right into item 6, the student representative report.
This month we had 4 programs in addition to the teen space. The teen cultural celebration, which had 15 attending, the Wild Scholarship Writing Program at 18 attending, the Catching Fire movie with 12 attending, and dollars for college with 8 attending. So Teen Space had 13 sessions in November, averaging about 48 attendees per session. And the upcoming programs were the Manga Club, December 4th, which is already passed. Teen Advisory Board, December 12th, already passed. We had 22 attendees. And Teen Iron Chef, also on December 12th, with 27 attendees. So once again, the Teen Advisory Board members are here to give their little report. And the one thing I would like to say before they start is that this month we started doing the meetings under Robert's Rules of Order. So we started making motions, having seconds, and forming committees, and it was a lot of fun. Made the meetings far more organized too.
Good for you.
Yeah.
Hello everyone, I'm Cindy, I'm the Secretary of TAB.
Hello, I'm Young. I'm the Vice President of TAB.
Last Friday was the December TAB meeting, and at that meeting, we introduced new programs that TAB will now help. One of those being the Towel Hat Project. This project is to collect towels to be made into hats to help elders and chemotherapy patients, as it's the winter and some have lost hair, so the hats will keep them warm. We formed a committee that will be part of promotion and also the collecting of towels that will be partnering with the high school Young and I are part of the promotion portion of the committee. We will be doing flyers and spreading the word of this project. The second project is that we are trying to branch out and talk to the other teen-ran program, which is the book club, which is mainly consisted of Northville students, and TAB is mostly Novi, so we want to branch out with them and start communicating with them, so we have members emailing them, and hopefully we will see them either at our next TAB meeting or we will be attending one of their book club meetings.
Okay, and the other program we're planning is the Soap for Hope program, which is TAB will partner with Nova High School to collect hygiene products to donate to the homeless. And we have one member on it, Yuna, and she will partner with Margie, and you'll sort out like the homeless shelters and which ones need the hygiene products. And then the other project we have we're planning is the photos, like a diversity project where we will have a photo collage of students of many different races and ethnicities, and we'll put it in one huge collage to promote diversity. And we have a committee dedicated to collecting the photos and making it into the collage. And then so we have 4 members, and Cindy is the chair of the committee.
Yeah, that was what our December meeting was about.
And then we have some upcoming programs that we haven't established yet, but we're still planning.
Excellent, excellent. If I might be so bold on behalf of the board here, let me laud the efforts here. You could very easily have self-oriented programs, but your community involvement and philanthropy ideas, excellent, excellent. Good, kudos for you.
Thank you.
Any other questions, the board? Thank you. We move to item 7, which is our first opportunity for public comment. Anybody that would wish to address the board, feel free. And individuals, you have 3 minutes. If you're representing a group, we'll give you an extra few. And seeing no run on the podium, we'll close the first public comment session, and we'll move now to item 8. And I want to recognize our guests from the city, Carl Johnson and Deb Peck. The floor is yours. Thank you.
Good evening. So we are here, you say the floor is ours, actually the floor is yours. So we were,
I'm sorry.
Oh,
Okay.
The reason that, we asked at the last meeting, we asked for Carl and Deb to come to the meeting to help us to kind of walk through the reports that we received. I think, as a general proposition, everybody on this board is pretty comfortable with financial numbers. It's not a foreign concept, I don't think, to any of us here. And for the most part, we've looked at the library operations. The revenues are pretty straightforward. Our revenue sources are probably, you can boil them down to probably 5, one of which is 90-some%, that being tax revenues. On the expense side, most of ours are, if not fixed, they're certain continuing and reoccurring with a certain degree of certainty, employee costs, building costs, and programming costs. So for the most part, it's pretty straightforward. And we have spent more time over the course of the last several months, probably spending more time than we cared to, about trying to understand how some of the numbers are flowing through on the financial reports that we're receiving. So we thought it'd be helpful if we could get the other side, if you will, the ones that are preparing these, not only for our benefit, but clearly you're preparing ours in a format that is conducive to the balance of the city's operations, of which some of us aren't really aware of how it all plays out in your world. You know, who's looking at this and why is it in the format it is? It must be because it helps you in your day-to-day activities. So thought it'd be helpful and informative if you guys could come in and almost walk us through the reports, the financial reports that we look at every month. And that may spur some questions that may not, but I think that'll give us a better understanding of how it is put together and what it's really saying. So with that, they graciously came to We asked last month and they came to the first month after we asked, so we really appreciate that.
It's not a problem. So first and foremost, I think it's important to understand that, so after I got here in February, I believe by April 1st, we had changed the process where we no longer submitted monthly reports to our departments and to anybody. What we did was we showed everybody how to run the reports out of the system. So to exactly which reports you were getting, I wouldn't know. You know, I believe they were the system-generated ones. I believe Julia showed me some of them. But there were additional capabilities of the system, of which you have some of the examples here that were printed out tonight and included in your package, like detail every single month of the activities that go on and the current month activities. There's a whole menu of different options that you can have and you could run in your report sheets in every month. So what I believe you were probably getting was the standard report that we use, which is just, here's your original budget, here's your amended budget, and here's your month-to-date actual reports. I know we've talked about before, I believe I've talked to you maybe twice. When I first got here, I believe bank recs were a little behind and some of the information wasn't recorded timely. I think property taxes took a little bit to record.
If I might interject for a
Sure.
second, what is your preference? As questions come up, do you want to deal with them on the topic you're speaking of? Or would you prefer to finish your presentation and hit you all up with the questions?
I have no presentation. I am here for Q&A the entire night, so bomb away. That's all I'm here for. So.
No.
Yeah, so I was just giving you a little bit of background on that. So, and then our process as well is just, as we talked about before, last year when I was here in, I believe it was February, March, right after I got here, bank recs weren't up to date. Property taxes, you had brought up that, hey, 3 months in, we didn't know what our gross levy was, et cetera. At that time, I said, July 1, those would be recorded. We have a new process. We would be breaking it down more. As I got into things, I'd be breaking out more. Like you've seen, the pension now is broken up into a couple line items, and I've tried to simplify things so that there's pieces that match it, et cetera. So those are the things. You will still always have the issue of when it gets recorded in the general ledger. So if I get an invoice that comes in today, and it relates for services related to July, it will get posted back into July. That's just the way, it works we don't close our books. Some corporations, companies close their books, have a hard close at the end of each month to say, this is it. We guesstimate everything, we put it the way it is. Most governments don't do that. We don't do that here in Novi. We don't hard close. Yes?
If we're on a modified cash basis, and at some point in time, can you explain that a little bit to us, what that really means? But if we are on a modified cash basis, what difference does it make if we pay something in December that related to July, just so it's on the books at 6:30?
So remember, modified accrual versus full accrual, the two concepts there are
Oh,
really.
wait, it's modified accrual and not modified cash?
No, it's modified accrual is the basis
Oh,
of
okay,
the
well,
account.
okay.
Yeah, modified accrual just means you don't record long-term debt, you don't record fixed asset. It's more like a cash basis. That's where the terminology modified cash comes in. It still doesn't change the way you record them. Your goal is to record the activity as it occurs. So engineers, accountants, they're all historically slow in billing. And what you want to be able to do is, if I want to go back right now and run a report that says, what was my activity, what was my total disbursements, what was my total expenditure activity for the month of July, and an invoice comes in today related to July, that's the rationale for why it gets posted back into July. Even though we just got it today and we'll pay it in January, February, when you pay it's irrelevant. How it gets recorded in the system is when was the expenditure incurred? So that we can look at that like as an example. So if an attorney bills me every single month, but he's got a 4-month lag, I can run my general ledger at the end of the year and say, oh, there's my July, there's my August, there's my September. What if that attorney bills me 4 months all in 1 month? If I didn't book it back in each month, I'd have 0, 0, 0, and then all of a sudden I'd have a huge amount in one of the months. So it's to be able to monitor and run your reports each and every month, and that's the theory behind when you post it back. I don't know if that helps or doesn't help, but you will never be able to, I can't guarantee you that your prior balances won't change. What we can do is, you saw one of the reports in your package here, we can run a report every single month if you like to see, July last month said this, the July this month says this, and why did it change? You should be able to tie it to a new invoice that you got or something along those lines. Again, we try to minimize that. For the most part, we pay our bills when they come in. So it's just a matter of, if there's a straggler invoice out there, or sometimes you get, if I'm getting invoices now, I'm not paying them until January, so you may have that month lag, so.
Again, let me interject for a second, because I don't want to make this adversarial or confrontational, because we appreciate you taking of your time to work with us and explain, and we willingly outsource the accounting function to the city, okay? So we know that what we're paying for, we're getting good service here, okay? Our biggest concern or objections is lack of consistency in the reporting. And that's what tends to make it difficult for us to understand our progress, especially when we try to compare against either prior periods or against budgets. Now,
So could you elaborate on lack of consistency?
I absolutely will. You mentioned in your introduction budgets and amended budgets. We have not amended our budgets as a board after we set the final budget for the year. And yet we're getting information that says, oh, the budget's been amended. Okay? My question is on whose authority? Is it on city council's authority, in which case we're, I think, obligated or should have some explanation. If it's something that we initiate, we should communicate it back, and we should consistently be able to see the same information. To give you a for instance, I got too many things here, hold on. You show, for Fund 268, your revenue and expenditure reports that we can find on pages 27, 28, and 29. Again, I don't know if this is a report that we generate or you're generating on our behalf, but the second column,
Which pages, David, I'm sorry?
27 through 29.
So this is our month ending for November.
This is the period ending 11/30, yes. But the second column starts out with the 2014, 2015 original budget.
Correct?
That's what we authorized, okay? And there is the potential shortfall or deficit of 490,000 that the director has no authority to exceed. Okay? Now, you've added a third column called the 2014-15 amended budget. There's no change on the revenue. Now, you added a few detail lines to make accounting for the tax revenues easier, and I respect that. Thank you very much. Okay? But as far as we're concerned, it's still tax dollars. So it's not the revenue that concerns me. But if you look at the total expenditures, we approved 3 million, on page 29, 3,056,200. You've now reported that we've knocked it down by $65,662, down to $2,990,000, reducing the potential deficit from 490 down to 424. The three items that are impacted are non-pensionable wages, $23,000, the net pension liability, because you were able to have a separate report that talks about that. So we're actually overfunded by 3156. But the thing that concerns me is, again, for governmental accounting, we have to account for CapEx or capital outlays as part of our annual expenditures. There's two capital outlays, one for building and plumbing, $24,550, and one for the phone upgrade, $15,000, that have now disappeared without our authority. How does that happen?
We would have been notified to make like the phone ones go away. So globally, I changed the allocations as we discussed for pension and retiree health care and all of those, which resulted in a net decrease to the library, and so that's what those were.
Thank you very much. I appreciate it.
And so the other ones only come through request, and so I'll have to determine exactly where those requests come from. But we would have specific backup for each and every one of those changes that we can supply to Julie.
At none of our meetings, since we adopted the budget, have we discussed modifying the budget to account for these things. So any request that came through, I don't believe was authorized.
There has been no request, so I'll just have to look, I think I have to work with Jessica, just to make sure that they're still there, but there hasn't been any changes.
Yeah, so again, there would be support for all of those, and we will provide it to her.
There's been
So-
no changes.
Again, I use the word consistency. If changes are proper, all we ask is that they be communicated so we don't stumble upon them.
Okay, so again, it's not an inconsistency, it is a communication issue between the two, because I think what you have is the budget for the library still falls under the city's umbrella.
Yes.
And so there's still citywide, like when I made the pension adjustments and everything else, that's one of those where it would have been brought before the city council, and that global change that affected every single fund of the city, it was all incorporated in there. So what we need to do, to your point, is on a communication basis, make sure that Julie is getting that, and so it gets to you, so that you can make a proper, recognition of that change, I guess, is what it is. So, again, not inconsistency, it's poor communication on those things. And so we've identified that, and any adjustments to the budget going forward, we'll make sure we forward
Okay,
those.
so that's our starting point because we're measuring our performance against the adopted budget or authorized budget.
The good news is it's down 60,000.
Well, from her perspective, she's saying, you just tied my hands by 60,000 that the board had already given her the potential if she needed it, okay? Now, one of our goals and objective is to knock it down 20%. You've already done that job for her, if indeed this
Again,
amended.
I've done those on pieces that you guys had no control over. It's healthcare, it's pension contributions and all those things. So as we redefined our allocation methodology, which again, that's a one-time change. So I haven't even been here a year yet. So, but I think we've been through an audit. I think I don't anticipate any additional breakdowns or changes like that. It's all done just to simplify.
I appreciate the
properly
fact that one of the extra reports that you provided for us for the first time was the month-by-month accumulator.
That's for months,
Okay, that's from you?
that's for months.
Good.
Again,
Okay.
a report that could
Because-
have been run every single month
Yeah, we just.
from last
we're just
April.
Getting still to know the system and realize that was a request I know from trustee Checkeye, and working with actually the finance department to get that, so.
Because that's what prompted my request to see about retroactive or prior period adjustments. Now we'll see the changes because the months, the reports that we get, we can compare the changes. But if you have the ability to know that you're posting to prior periods, why can't that be summarized in a little memo?
I've got
Yeah.
thousands of invoices.
Too
that come
many?
through
Okay,
each-
so that's
each
not
number.
practical.
Yeah.
So having this accumulated schedule will at least give us the opportunity to see where the changes are.
Yeah, and you should be able to tie that to
No.
specific, changes.
Plus, that's why we're offering the report that's in red that shows you things that are, still pending that haven't hit the books. We do that out of our office as well,
Okay.
in our warrants.
Now, you had mentioned, again, differences between private accounting and governmental accounting here. In the private world, the relationship between your balance sheet and your P&L, it goes through retained earnings. So I expect if I'm going to accept that the revenue and expenditure reports are correct on a year-to-date basis, that should be reflected on the balance sheet. And on both Fund 268 and 269, I got different numbers. So, for instance,
So the monthly expenditures do not close to retained earnings / fund balance. That's an annual process. So what should be in fund balance, no matter when you run it, is prior year's balance.
well, I'll give you an example, page 35, the balance sheet for Fund 268. You have a line that starts out beginning fund balance, okay, that carried over from the fiscal year ended June 30th. And then you have another line called net revenues over expenditures. So you're showing $1,361,748.30.
Which is your results as of the month end November, yes.
No, the month in November is $1,352,522, or a difference of $9,225.97. There's almost a $10,000
No,
difference.
that can't be the case. Then it's gotta be the timing when you rent it, because
It-
it's a system-generated number that,
Okay.
in my 27 years, has never been.
Right, that's my point, okay? Same
But
thing.
again, that's when your team runs it
Right.
at any time. So if the balance sheet was run on 2 days and oops, we keyed in 2 more expenditures, they've gotta be run
I don't know when
simultaneously,
you want me to
otherwise
run them
they
then.
Well, I'd like to run them concurrently, but
We
you know,
do.
Yeah,
We run them the same day, the same time.
But we do that, we run into this every month. We're always off.
we
So
shouldn't
we
be.
shouldn't, so
the
it's,
system-generated report has never been off, and will never
It
be.
shouldn't be.
well, no,
Oh, you do, okay.
if they're running the same, if they're run the same day, should the
I
numbers be the
apologize.
same?
We
Yes.
reran some reports this month that are off. Normally, they are run at the same time and the same
Well,
day.
But last month, for example, when we talked about this, we were
Yeah.
off.
Yeah.
And I think we were off the month before that, so unless,
They're usually run, we usually don't change them. They're usually
When you
the same
run
time.
them and they don't work, call me.
Okay.
They've never
Yep.
worked. That's a
Okay.
system-generated number.
Okay.
I've never had
Because,
an issue.
again, I believe you, I agree with you, that's probably timing issues, okay? And there's no bad intent not to provide accurate and precise information, but it just creates a seed of doubt on us if it's a material difference.
Sure.
You know, especially if it relates to a capital expenditure of some magnitude.
Yeah, so again, in your internal processes, make sure, again, this should be one of the check figures for the final packet. Do those 2 numbers agree? Because they never don't agree. It's just a matter of when you run the reports.
Okay.
Because again, we're not, it's not one of those where we're running them out. Anybody can run them at any time, and it would be very easy to say, oh, I got this, oops, keyed in a couple more, and then forget to run one of the pieces. So that can be the only explanation.
so going back to the issue, we can't get a memo because you got thousands of these little adjusting entries all the way through. But is there some type of a cue to Julie and staff to go back, that there were adjustments in prior periods, and to run that, or is it just that she would have to go back every month and see if there's been a change? And
Well, that-
give that to, I mean,
Yeah, that system-generated report that you have that has all
Yes.
of the months, again, that's just a push of a button, there's
Yep.
nothing to it.
Okay.
We
You
know
so
how
you
to
should
set
be-
that up now. We
You
did
should
that.
very easily be able to say, here's the report I gave you last month that said July was X, and here it is this month, and to the extent there's a change.
Do you have the ability to export that information into an Excel file or something that you can compare against what was previously reported? So you could let a spreadsheet calculate the
Oh, you
difference?
guys.
So you don't have to spend time doing
Yes.
what we're doing?
Then you push the button, when you go to print it, you can print it to Excel. Rather than print a hard copy, it prints directly to Excel, if that was the case as well. And you could drill down into the detail to see exactly, because they have numbers on, each entry has a number, so you can see by the latest entry number what it was. So, it's work, it's a little bit of work, but.
It is a little
It's
bit of
all
work,
there.
but I've been doing this every month just to try and get comfortable here, and I stumble upon it. And again, it's not that it's not accurate, it's just not consistently reported. And that's all I'm looking for is consistency here. So
Remember, our ultimate goal is completeness by month, so again, to the extent a month changes, that's not an inconsistency. Our goal is, does July have all the activity that really happened in July? It doesn't matter when you billed, when we got the bill, or when we paid it. If we incurred it in July, is it all in July? And remember, that's the underlying premise of
Okay,
of the
so
economy.
my next question then, is gonna be difficult, because one of the things that we get on a quarterly basis from you is the investment summary.
Mhm.
And again, my expectation from a consistent reporting capability is the balance sheet as of the end of the quarter, the assets that are in the investment should tie to your quarterly investment schedule. And those are off. But now, if we're running 2 different reports, if they're running the balance sheet, but you're running the investment report, I could see where now the inconsistency would occur.
We're also changing that, again, I change everything along here. The tracker report that we're using, we're either gonna be taking that over ourselves, because right now we kind of submit the information to a third party who compiles it all, that's the delay. I don't like the delay, so we're either gonna take it over ourselves or just self-report, don't use that system anymore, just self-report. That's what Deb oversees on behalf of the city. So we've actually got a meeting scheduled in the next week or two to meet with them and make that decision. So one way or another, it will be more timely. And number two, so again, the less time that goes by, the more it's gonna be right on. So that report itself will change as well. But, yeah, exactly, the number is the number, at the end of the month. So,
The report, you're talking about the quarterly investment report?
yes,
So,
yeah.
That's the one that you may be
Yeah,
taking
we
in-house?
use a software called Tracker.
Okay.
And so right now, we literally turn all of our investment and cash records over to a third party. They enter it all in, summarize it by fund, then we get a report back from them. There's a delay in getting back to them. Our bank recs are done, within 30 days after year-end now citywide, so those are done timely, the investments are reconciled timely. So now it's just a matter of, that report should be no more than 30 to 40 days old, when it comes out. So we're trying to alleviate that whole delay in our
All right,
reliance on third.
one final question before I give the floor to the treasurer, who can opine on the reports that we do have. In Fund 269, we were asked to create a budget, which we did, and we also reformatted into 5 major classifications. Yet the reporting that we have on page 36 still shows the old.
Julie met with our
So,
accountant on
Yep.
Thursday.
We did.
I'm not sure what happened there, but
Nope.
you should have your 5 categories.
Yes.
Okay, and you should be able to map
Yep.
then into those categories. So if we had a fund classification that had budgeted for X amount, and now we spend the money, even though it had been determined prior to the conversion, so it was carried over from June 30th. If we're spending it now, it reflects as a current period expenditure, is that
I
correct?
should, yes.
Okay.
That's the proper way to do it. One of the questions about, that use of fund balance as a revenue, I hate that. That was here before I got here. I mean, it makes no sense to me
No,
to budget it that way. It's a revenue. When you get it, it's a revenue. When you spend it, it's an expenditure. The net is the net. So that, again, is something else I eliminated, and that's why you don't see it in the new budget. So,
And we concur with that.
okay, but yes, with those 5 categories, as you spend it, it'll be there. It's just a matter of linking those 5 categories to each and every revenue line item, expenditure line item, so they close to the right.
So my takeaway from this conversation is that we have more autonomy or responsibility for the financial reporting than was previously assumed. So,
Yeah, we're learning, we, from reports that we know of, we found out that there's other things that we can run that we weren't aware of.
but
And-
how you run them is also critical
Yes.
for the consistency.
And we're learning
So,
also the other options based
Some
on
of the
what you're
angst or
asking.
agita that I've had should not be tilted towards
No, not
the
at all.
kindness of the, thank
We-
you very much.
we
I
didn't
appreciate
know, but
your-
we are still
we asked
you know,
questions, so, yep.
Yeah, I mean, we spent time with them,
Yep.
teaching them how to run them, and we will spend as much as we need to as well. Because again, we are here for you
Yep,
guys. It's important
absolutely.
that you guys understand the numbers, so. And to the extent, I don't like coming here for this. You're supposed to come here for milk and cookies, so that's what I'm here for, so. But yeah, again, like I said before, as much as I need to be here to iron out whatever we need to be, we're here, that's what we're here for.
Thank you.
Okay, well, some of mine have been answered. I have another one, but Mr. String's hand's gotta get tired. He's having that the whole time. So,
Well, I had a question, and I think it's a little bit different than Dave's, but also want to emphasize, we don't really want to be the tail, that wags the dog, and so therefore our questions are whether things are, possible, but not expecting to change things for our small budget relative to the city's entire budget. But I'm looking at, for example, this month, and on our page 16, which is our approved budget for property tax revenue of $2,309,000, and that shows up on our page 27, which is, the activities through the end of November, that the original budget was a $2,309,000, but the amended budget is $2,368,947. Now,
With more contra
Right.
accounts that go with it.
Correct.
If
You
you
have to
add
look
the
at all
4 all
5
underneath,
Yeah,
together.
you have to look at
Yeah,
the.
that's-
Because they do equal the 2309.
They do equal,
Yeah.
but it shows up as an amended budget, as a showing of, I guess I would think that we now have an increase, or we have a decrease in the various line items. I mean, That's my understanding, but maybe not.
Yeah, so the intent of this is to simplify, because what you truly have, and so let me explain those 4 categories so that everybody understands them. A lot of times, boards like yourself look at that number and say, 2,309,000, that's the number, when my tax bills go out, that's the number I get. That's wrong. What really is in that number, and has always been in that number, are those 5 different pieces. And each of those pieces really are a separate analysis all by themselves. So the first thing I like to do when I got here, and I warned you this was kind of coming, was, hey, we should identify them because it really makes an effect on how you budget things. So if you look at the 5 new categories, the 4 new categories that I created, the first line item, the one you're referring to that went up by the 60,000 or whatever the number is, that's the number to the penny that goes out July 1 on the tax rolls. So much higher than the 2,309,000. So a lot of times what happens is, well, wait a minute, Treasurer's Office just said it's $70,000 higher. We're just, you stole my money. Where'd it go? Well, no, that's not the case. That's the gross number. Underneath that is chargebacks. To the extent people don't pay their taxes, we get reimbursed 100% from the county. The county goes out and tries to collect it. If they don't, then the house or the property goes up for tax sale. And then to the extent they collect all the taxes, which they rarely do, if they don't, they charge us back for some or all of that amount that they paid us previously, up to 2-3 years ago. So that line item right there is independent of what goes out July 1. If it's 2008, 2009, when the housing market crashed, that number is $120,000. It's dwindled now because things are rebounding, things aren't going to tax sale, et cetera. So you look at that and say, hey, things are getting better and better. I can anticipate that going down. So when you hear property taxes next year are estimated at the next council meeting, you think the assessor is going to come out and say about 2.9% increase next year. It's the top number that goes up 2.9. And then you could also look at this and say, hey, I think things are getting better. I think their chargebacks are going to go less. So that 30,000 may only be 25 next year, which will provide Julie with an analysis of that. So not only do you get the 2.9%, but you also get, a $10,000 or $20,000 boom because you don't have the chargebacks from that. The next line item there is tax tribunals. 2008, 9, 10, we had hundreds of appeals, tax appeals, significant appeals under the tribunal for potential property tax refund. Those are going down and down and down. I think we're under 100 or right around 100 now, and the liability continues to decrease. So again, that liability is on the way down as well. So this year, part of the reason for the favorable results was we were able to decrease that liability citywide, including in the library. So there was like a $10,000 or $20,000 pickup for the library, which helped the bottom line there. But again, it's a separate number. It gets masked at part of that. So the whole intent was to send out the details there. The brownfield, believe it or not, we actually have a brownfield that has 1 property here. So part of the library and all the city mills gets captured for that brownfield. So a whopping, $200 gets captured. But again, you don't know that we even have a brownfield here and that they're taking part of the operating millage unless it's shown there. And what if we grant a whole bunch of brownfields? It'd be good for you to know that and know that you permanently will never see that money that the brownfield is going to capture until the brownfield expires. And then lastly, the current or the deferred delinquent personal property taxes. That's the personal property taxes we get settled annually for the real. We never get the personal. There's no recourse except to go out and padlock the business and sell off their assets. So after the first year, if you don't collect it, odds of collecting it are like 90-95% that you never see it. So the accounting rules require you basically defer it or write it off until such time you actually do collect it. So last year, the amount of delinquent personals never collected, never got settled for was about $10,000 there. That's the estimate for this year. So again, as things get better, people pay their taxes and that number could be less, or if we have a downturn, that number goes more. So it's just important to understand the pieces. So you can see why on a budget standpoint, it's not just, take the $3 million and add 2.9% because it may be materially high, or maybe in this case, when things are getting better, it's actually going to be a little low for you. So that's why I like to break out the pieces.
If you do collect overdue taxes, and there's an interest factor, is any of that interest factor allocated to the library?
Do we allocate that? I don't believe so. The interest on the delinquent persons? Oh, no, actually, it does, yes.
Yes, it does,
I'm trying to picture the county's invoice, so.
because it's allocated based on what the
The
millage
individual millage. Yeah.
was for that year.
Is it reflected as tax revenue or is interest income?
It's tax revenue. It's all under that delinquent
So
personal.
if it's related to collecting the
Correct.
taxes, it's just,
Yeah, it's a net number in that chargebacks line item there, so, yep. Yeah, because the county sends a detailed invoice that says I collected $200 bill, and here's each individual person's and each individual entity's portion of the interest collections as well, so. So I hope that helps. So in a perfect world, I think what you should see is that first page that you have there should have the 5 categories, rather than the net. Because that was obviously created a year ago when we didn't have the 5 categories. So going forward, for the 2 to match, I mean, it probably makes sense to have that. But again, the net, if you look at your financial statements, it's the net number. But from a line item basis, from a budgetary basis, it makes sense because each of those are totally separate analysis that I have to do. And they tie to different things.
I understand that, and I appreciate it. I think the confusion to us was seeing it in a category of an amended budget and believing correctly or erroneously that this board was the only one that could amend that budget. Didn't understand how someone else could amend the budget.
And so again, the reason it was posted that way is I didn't amend the total. We have latitude under the state's laws to move amongst, as long as you don't change the total or change the line items, you can do it that way. So as you pointed out, the total revenues didn't change. But if I was to change the total, it would require approval by you and approval by, the council as well. So that's why the other pieces that did change, they would have gone before there, but we need to ensure that they come to you as well. So. And that will happen. That's easy.
Is that?
That's all.
Okay. On the topic of, another topic of what we can and cannot generate ourselves, for example, page 35, where we have our balance sheet, on a monthly basis, can we get any detail on accounts payable and accruals?
It's a push of a button, yeah. There's a detailed report that has them on there.
Okay.
That has them in there. Julie's happy. She's gonna be a CPA.
Well,
No, it literally is. I mean, all you have to do is click on the month's activity and it'll show every single line
All
item
right,
that was
but to
actually.
Larry's point, as the end of October, we were over 90,000 in payables. Here we are.
23.
Now it's down to, no, as of November, it's down to 23.
Right.
It was a change of
Yes.
70,000
and
during the
what
month.
was that? Yeah.
Yeah.
So, but we can just,
Absolutely.
without taxing, no pun intended, the director and staff to ask for some detail, it is just,
It's a simple click.
so
and
we're
we
not
can show
asking them to manually think about what they're doing in the sense of generating yourself. Well, you know what I mean? No, you wouldn't have to compile it yourself. It's a matter of it's available. She may have to find out where to go for it in the menu, but it's once you get there.
Yeah, because actually, literally, when you run this report, if you just double click on it, it actually comes up, so it's that simple. Yeah, it's a good system. But again, most of the time with payables is just a timing. It's just a timing. When was their last council meeting to approve the disbursements? Who knows what a lot of it is.
I do have another question, going back to the amended budget, because you clarified my question as well on that. But once upon a time, back in the day, it was a standard procedure that towards the end of the year, the library was asked to amend their budget to hit actual. So wherever the year end was gonna finish, we were asked to amend the budget so that if you looked at the calendar year or the fiscal year budget, and you looked at the fiscal year operating performance, they were exactly the same. And it never made sense why that was, and the response from your side of the table was, well, that's what we do. And so, but then you sit back and say, a budget is, it's okay if the budget's not detailed or the same as what the operating, that's why you use it as a planning tool.
So just remember.
So anyways,
Yeah, so not,
so when you see amended, it's like, what do we do now?
right. In a perfect world, the two would be equal. And that's what obviously the finance people strive for, because literally every single meeting you could amend your budget. And I'd probably even recommend it, because what is a budget? A budget is a tool to help you monitor your expectations. So to the extent at any given time your expectations change, acknowledge it and pass it. It's an administrative nightmare, you don't have full-time accountants over there. The state law says you can't spend $1 more than you appropriated. So the only important thing with this is come year end, look at the significance. Remember when I came to you last year about the Walker Library Fund? Pass something. The expenditure budget, not even on the revenue side, we could be millions off on the revenue side, the state doesn't care. On the expenditure side, if you're $1 over, it's a violation of the Budget Act. So the importance there is right near year end, please take a look at it. And again, we'll be, saying, hey, could you pass an amendment? But sometime May, June, if we could pass something so that we are insured, at least on those category levels that we're under budget, then we're in compliance with the Budget Act. So, yeah, it would be outstanding if we were that close, but there are others that, like you said, on June 29th, we run out and pass it exactly where it's actuals, but you got accruals, and it's a hard game to play. It really is, so. But you just want to make it big enough so that we comply with the State Budget Act. That's our only goal, really.
Last question, on the investment side, what's your general take on how we're doing collectively? Ours and the city, and are there any changes?
So actually, bringing up changes, again, nothing can stay the same when I'm here. So, our investment policy citywide is too conservative in my guesstimation. Right now, it basically says you can't go out more than 2 years unless it's for capital related, and the investment policy actually says for capital, so like capital project funds or special assessment funds, et cetera. So if you think of the library doesn't really have capital funds. You could argue the Walker Fund is capital related, but even then, it's really not. It's unrestricted monies right now. So we can't get more than, 3 basis, well, the max we're getting is about about 1%.
About 1%.
Is the best we can,
Short-term money.
yeah, and to go out 2 years, the best we can get is about maybe slightly over, slightly under 1%. That's crazy. We've got a pot of $120 million that we invest. And so we are proposing to the council in the next 30 days to amend that and to allow us to invest things, so if we have a targeted fund balance in the library fund of 10% or whatever it is, and say that's $500,000, why can't that be invested long-term? And then you look at your budgets going forward, how are we gonna use that? The Walker Fund, if we have no plans to use it for the next 3, 4, 5 years, why can't 75% of that be invested long-term? To get the,
Fund 269, right?
Right.
yeah.
Right, so for instance, if we look on page 41, which shows the breakdown of the investments between short-term, 4 to 5 years and 5 to 10 years, and get some idea of the yield, is this representative of what the total city portfolio looks like?
Yes. So we probably have 70 of the 120 million in the over 4 to 5 years stuff. Because the water and sewer fund is $50 million itself in cash reserves that we can invest in. And then there's a little bit of some other monies. But the Public Act 20 is so restrictive of what you can invest in. But we are fortunate, we have the surplus cash. We have set it up that we've already restricted ourselves on how much we can spend in the reserves we want set aside. Well, let's maximize our reserves. An extra 1% or 2% is huge in my mind. And so, obviously, with my background, I'm big into cash flows. I worked with all the emergency managers, and we did cash flows hourly, for that kind of stuff. So, between Deb and myself, we've created kind of a cash flow model of what we're gonna need, coordinate that with the budgets on an annual basis as far as how much cash we might be using for capital and anything else, and be able to plan out 3, 4, 5 years into the future so we can ladder our investments and maximize our returns. Because I want 100 million of that 130 million getting 3% as opposed to getting the average of 1.4 or 1.5. So it's just a matter of restructuring the investment policy first, and then we got our investment managers ready to go to help us maximize that. So that will be coming very shortly, and obviously you will be part of that as well. So. And you can see there we've got, the reason the short term, the 3.2 million, remember you get the big spike of property taxes, you get the 2 million early, and then that dwindles back down to, to the $1 million. So that is being invested, and you can see there it's kind of that blend between the 0.3 and the 1% that we're getting right now, so, which is similar to everywhere else.
Are there any other questions of our guests?
Well, just a comment on what you've said, Carl. We faced this at the library several years ago, and what we were concerned about the type of returns that we could get on our investment, and I think philosophically we're on the same page there. But what we ended up doing was knowing that the type of investments that we had were extremely limited at extremely low interest rate, and we chose to use some of our reserves to pay some of our underfunded pension liability, whereby effectively we were getting, a significant, I guess it wasn't our yield, but at least a charge to we were being charged, 7 or 8% on the underfunding, and therefore using some of that money, so effectively creating a better yield for us.
Oh, absolutely, yeah. To extend your pensions underfunded and you're getting 1, 2, 3%, dump that in there, because that's where you're getting the double-digit yield. On average, you read your investment, the MERS pension report, the assumption is 7.5%, 8% a year. You can't get that here. So to the extent you could dump that in and get that return and get to the overfunded position that you're at, that's exactly the smartest thing to do. So that was great planning on your part, and, city-wise, we've got our OPEB liability fully funded as well, because it can be invested in the same type stuff. So push as much as you can over there, because you're certainly not getting it over here, so. Yep, no, that was great. It helps, you're overfunded.
Any other questions?
No, just last comment on the investments. It sounds like we are on the same page, because, we've gone through and we haven't detailed out 5 years, but we've certainly mapped it out, and we know where our cash burn expectations are gonna be, coupled with a relatively new building and what our capital improvements will be, and we always look at the numbers and say, we have more money here that we can park on a more long-term basis than we currently do, and hopefully get a little bit better return. So
We're on the same page.
It's nice that we're all on the same page.
Yeah,
I'm not so sure we always were.
Yeah, we've gone through fund by fund, because again, that's my approach, it's just like, what do we need, what do we have now? I looked at our June 30 balance, the time when you're lowest of your lowest cash, and we had way too much in short-term stuff. And our policy restricts us on some of that stuff, so that'll be, again, it's not a crazy, risky model. It is a common sense, based on reality, based on our current financial condition policy. It's one of those where it's standard, everybody, stay short-term, anything more than 2 years, you gotta be careful. Well, if you're really on top of things and have your cash flow models and really, know what your budget is, you can go out longer than that. And we just have to acknowledge the fact that we have that and go forward and make sure that you continue to get these reports and continue to monitor it, and because it can be adjusted, 2 years from now, 3 years from now, if something major happens or we need to spend a chunk of that or choose to spend a chunk of it, we just need to be aware of it. And it's not something you're gonna do, 6 months from now in the next budget, we're gonna spend $1 million. Usually we know of it and we're aware of it, and we can plan our investments accordingly so that we can time the maturities and that kind of stuff, so.
On that topic, will we be able to avail ourselves of, are you folks looking at the library source and use, long-term, short-term, or will you be as well?
Oh, absolutely, yes.
Okay, so will we be part of that discussion with you folks for input or for direction?
We'd love that.
So
How can we make that happen?
Would that be before our budget?
Well, so when would you be discussing it? So I look at, short term, when I looked at it, when we started talking about this, I know your goal has been, last year's shortfall was 270,000, whatever the final result ended up to be. And I know your goal has been knock off 100 grand of that each and every year, and then you have the locker money, 269 money. I don't know what your plans are with that yet, but I assumed that was more of a longer term thing, and that we really weren't touching that. It was almost like an endowment in my mind. Right. So short term, 5 years out, I'm looking at that, saying that entire 269 fund is, you probably want maximized, almost every dime of it in longer term stuff. And then the other one, do we have enough fund balance? I think it's $1.5 million or whatever. If we say we continue to burn the 250, that's still 5 years out before that goes to a zero. So in my mind, that's where I was gauging hey, it looks like you got at least, $2-3 million of it that we can lock up long term, and then, maximize the short term
And
stuff.
that's assuming no recovery of incremental tax revenues.
Yeah, and exactly, because it's real easy to throw more in there, it's just a matter of making sure we have enough reserves.
Well, we strive to get the budget sessions completed by the 1st of March? Is that when we schedule
Our
them?
final, the meeting in March is the 25th. That's when you'll finalize the budget. So, and actually, right around the deadline for turning in stuff to Carl's office as well. But it is the 25th is when you'll finalize.
Well, I think from a treasurer's perspective, I think coinciding with our budget, it would be nice to be able to get in at least some detail to provide to the balance of the trustees as to, where we're looking at for purposes of investments in terms of,
So we have
50%,
two budget
40%.
sessions, one in February and one in March.
Okay. Yeah,
So sometime after the first, maybe sometime in February, whenever you would do it, but if I would like to see be in a position to have something to talk about, or at least have an idea what the game plan is by the time we're sitting down with our budget discussions for the next fiscal year.
So the nice thing with this is we're pooling the investments as well to maximize it, citywide. So we will be pulling the trigger as soon as the council passes that, so again, to maximize it, and then we can refine the details afterwards. So if they pass what I'm gonna be proposing to them, we will probably be shifting another 20, 30, $40 million into longer term investments and get it going like that. And again, we can address then, how much do you want, or are you comfortable with doing that? Knowing that at any time, because they're pooled, say we needed to cash in $500,000 or whatever it is from the library to from the water and sewer fund or the general fund, exchange the investments, we'd have the ability to do that. So that part doesn't, doesn't.
So I think
concern
as,
me much.
when you know what's gonna happen with the city, we can get that information and we can meet as a finance committee and talk about that that'd be after the first of the year. You going to council this month yet?
No,
Or-
no, in January.
January,
Probably
okay.
the second one in January is what we're shooting for. So.
One last point, because you were kind enough to provide information. On page 22, there's a one-page report called the Employer Contribution Details, and you touched on this already, the amended pension analysis that you did. But if you look in the middle of the page where it says estimated monthly contribution for Division 12 library employees, the important thing is that we're overfunded. We did our job.
Exactly. Yeah, this is the actual report. This isn't my report. This is from MERS. This is our required contribution you see at the top beginning July 1/15. So we know what our contribution is. Citywide, the contribution went from 2.4 million to 2.8. You see that total there, but you continue to be in an overfunded state. You can see there the net of the 1,176 and the negative 1,358 is a net zero for you. And actually, the net of those two is a negative number, and you see it shows up in your actual statements.
Again, I just want to express our gratitude for you taking your time and working with us. It is appreciated. We do tend to share our views. If it came across, it was unintentional. And now that we know that we have more control than we thought we did, we're going to work towards solving some of
I
those
think
issues.
probably everybody but one person in this room is probably pretty comfortable.
And again, we are here to help. So yeah, they've learned a lot just in the last couple days, getting together and, based on your requests, hey, how can we make this happen? And we said, well, what about this? What about that? How about if we run every single month for you? Oh yeah, that sounds good. So that's where these come from. The system has a lot of things. I think one of the requests was encumbrances and this and that. Some of them are impossible. They're not in the system, but month by month, prior months, run detail, all of that stuff is, just a matter of setting it up correctly and then pushing the button every month, so.
If I can just take a moment, Carl and Deb both, I want to thank you for your time, and also Jessica and Sabrina, who are on Carl's team as well. All four of them are always helpful to us when we make calls over there, both Marcia and myself, who do work on the financials the most, and they're always, taking our calls. We are not ignored. They are very good about meeting with us when we need to meet and showing us new things as well. So I do want to thank you and your team, because
I'll
it
let
is,
them know. Thanks.
we do appreciate all the time that you give us. We try not to bug them too much. I know that they have bigger things to do,
No, it's-
but they are
Everybody's important.
they are available to us when we do call.
May I ask one more question, take advantage of the
Nope, sorry.
expertise?
Time's
Well,
up.
it's here. And it was just that
should
David had
point
brought
towards
up
the
the
door.
MERS report, and I don't know if you have any, I know it comes from MERS, but I don't know if you have any influence on it. It strikes me that where it talks about the library, and then it talks about the period of amortization for the unfunded liability, and there's no unfunded liability. I don't understand what 14 years is. And I know it comes from MERS, but can somebody tell MERS that that's probably an inappropriate number if there is no
Well, no,
unfunded?
that's an overall statement, because remember, this isn't just the library, this is every single division of the city.
Well, and it seems to be very specific to the library, and it was, I
Is
read
that on
it
page
across-
22, or are you?
Yeah.
I'm on page 22 and across each category, so I'm looking across the category.
Oh, I'm sorry, yeah.
That where it talks about the
The second
amortization
column.
period. It looks specific to
Yes,
each line.
that one is, yes. Remember, when we close these plans, they accelerate the funding, and that's part of it. So that's just the period that they do. So what happened is, if you look, that was probably 16 the year before, and it'll be 12 next year. As we close these divisions out, they've accelerated the funding on us, so we've opted to close them out, and they've accelerated the funding. It used to go one by one by one. This is the years left that they amortize the unfunded liability. And so you can see there, our unfunded liability is actually zero. Is the negative one. It's the normal cost that is there. So they're actually amortizing the negative over that remaining period. So really, in actuary gargle, it doesn't mean anything. You have one pool of money, it's over 100% of what you need in there right now. So assuming the market doesn't tank, we should be in good shape for years to come, so. Yeah, we do keep our eyes on them, but for the most part, we've closed all but 2 plans now, so this is just gonna be a matter of of each and every year, those numbers just shrinking. They will go down by 2 years each and every division until they hit, I believe it's 5, and then it goes 1 year at a time after that. So,
Thank you.
okay?
Thank you so much.
Sure, you're welcome, thank you.
Thank you.
Gary, did you have anything else to add?
Given that wonderful presentation, and I thought it was helpful, and given the lateness of the hour, I would just say that through the 11-month financials, we are clearly ahead of plan on revenues, which we always are. Oh, 5 months, yes. I say 6?
You said 11.
11? Oh, 11
It's
is
through
November.
11. Yeah, right.
Expenses, if we just take it ratably over the course of 12 months, that'd be about 8% a year, and that would put us at about 42% for expenditures. I think we're about 39%, so I think we're tracking okay, and that explanation was very helpful today. I hope everybody else, I will say from my perspective, the package of information we typically received, if one can make the assumption, my assumption was that was the information that we were to be provided, as opposed to, we had some flexibility, so I think that was good. Not to say, at least from my chair, that we're gonna start asking you to give us 50 pages worth of detail, but it is nice to know that when we do have questions with enough advance notice back to you, we can start doing that, or we can start asking on a monthly basis, hey, can you give us an answer to, let's say, for example, what the payables are, the detail, or as we saw that sheet here, going back over the previous months of the year to find out where there's been some adjustment entries. And Julie, I don't know, do you get all the invoices come through you first?
Yes, most of them come in through me.
So, for example, Carl's example about a legal bill. If you were expecting a legal bill from work you had done in August, and you didn't get it until November.
Yeah,
So, I mean,
it's,
how difficult is that for you to at least get if not detail, at least a snapshot to say, hey, in the month of, November, we received several lagging invoices for
Right.
X, Y, and Z.
well, I know Marcia details a lot of that in the warrant area already. We don't see anything that big of a lag,
Yeah, but the warrants don't detail the period of, do they always, maybe I get glossy-eyed, but you know where I'm going with that.
Yeah.
For example, if we had $35,000 of expenses paid in November that were for bills in July,
Right, I could give you a
you know,
footnote on that.
this is a heads up, and then maybe we can ask
Sure.
you to push the button or double-click, as Carl indicated, and give us a snapshot.
But we're gonna start giving you that monthly report so that you see that, now that we know how, I know that's something that you had asked for. And
Yes.
when we sat down with and said, we were only using the reports that they generated for us, we learned how to use. Now we understand that there are a number of things that we can go ahead and ask for that we didn't realize we could do until we sat down with them more. And once the audit was done, we really didn't want to bug them until after the audit. We kept hearing, give us some time, and I gave that to them. And so when we sat down and talked with Carl's staff and Carl specifically last week, we said, okay, we've had some asks for the monthly report. Can we do that? And they walked us through some of that, so.
Good, okay.
Trustee Verma.
About these invoices, for the facilities, about that HVAC system, they come to you or
They
they
do.
go to city?
No. Everything comes through me. I have
You
to sign
approve
off.
it and then send it.
Yes, I have to sign off everything.
Thank you.
All right, so the one action item, we need to get a response about this amended budget, the $65,000 adjustment.
Yes. Yep.
And
It's
And
the
you
capital
know the
outlay
three-
that they're not showing, yep.
And you know the three categories that
Yep,
were
I-
impacted?
Absolutely.
Okay.
I'll resend her my thing so that she, the budget, so she can see it again. I share that information with her.
And
So
that
it just-
beginning budget balance number, it's been tracked in more than 1 month.
Yeah.
Where it's different. At 1361 versus 1350, or 1,351 versus 1,361, whatever it was.
Oh,
This one.
between the revenue and expenditure
Yes,
and
that
then,
report.
yeah, the balance
and
sheet,
the balance
Well,
sheet.
Probably the
but
timing.
that's a timing
Timing.
difference.
yeah.
Because
that's
they operate a real-time system,
correct.
so without a hard close, yeah, you gotta make sure that you're capturing the snapshot at the same.
But if
See,
you are at the same, if you're generating that report.
And we were getting that because they were sending us the reports. Now we're pulling them. That's the
But
difference.
even then, if you look and compare and say, wait a minute, I'm
Right.
off $4,000, you have the ability to see,
Right.
so what was
What's
posted in the interim? There's the electric bill that we didn't get. No, we haven't. Okay.
Okay, that's it for me.
Just a question. Say we have a legal bill from July that we know is due for say $30,000.
Holy cow, what's the charge?
It should have been made in July.
Yeah, right, yeah.
I only have a $1,500 budget for that, so don't worry.
Well, just
You would know.
yeah. Just an example. Does anybody, can you set up an accrual for that, knowing that the money is due? Or is that something not done until it's paid?
Yeah, it's not done until it's paid, as far as I understand.
Until the invoice is vouched in the system, so that they can create a
Right.
warrant to approve the actual
Correct.
payment of it,
It's-
it's off the books. So
Yep.
we would have to internally allow
Yeah.
for it.
Okay.
Right.
Okay,
That's just,
but you're on the right
yeah.
track.
Right.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Treasurer. And thank the board for your indulgence. I think that was an important hour that we spent. And hopefully our frustration going forward will all be targeted in the right direction. Okay, so now we're moving on to item 9, the President's Report. There are now 2 items on the agenda. The first is the achievement of goals, which you find on pages 12 through 15. I'll try and run through rather quickly. On page 12, there were 3 goals that had tactics with action items. The first goal is fiscal responsibility. With respect to the cafe, you had a meeting on December 5th.
I did.
Is there anything we need to know about that meeting?
He has not paid any of the
Arrearage.
back owed from July and August as of this date. And at the meeting, I had let him know that you were very concerned as a board, and I had let him know that the payment should be received, and he said that he was going to be making those payments, but I have not seen a payment.
Okay, the second tactic relates to our customer service commitment. We had a staff in-service day. We closed the library on November 21st. And I'm sure the director can talk more about that under her report. Under goal number 2, the deficit reduction, one of the items is grant seeking. And they had a meeting where they're coordinating activity with Catholic Central High School for a grant application. On goal number 4, the focus on the senior community, there were 5 different tactics that had activity. One involved Meadowbrook Commons, where you updated the Flickr slides. I'm not quite sure what the Flickr is.
They have actual slides over at Meadowbrook that we send over information so that people see the programming going on at the library.
Oh, okay. Engage senior resources, created a chess program. That sounds interesting. In terms of the library programming, there are 4 book discussions that are being slated for 2015. And the next 2 items relate to cultural diversity. They had an international fair, and that you'll find on page 13, I'm sorry. And then secondarily, the Cultural Advisory Board. You met with a Wayne State professor to get some guidance or input?
The Wayne State professor actually is working with us so that we can bring in a practicum student for the spring-summer semester. That's giving us some additional help, but it's a student through Wayne State University through the library program, and it's of no cost to the library to do that. The student's learning, and then we also get an opportunity to work with that student as well.
Okay,
Mr. Chairman,
yes?
about this Indian cooking demonstration, the 4th line which says a participation with Korean, Japanese and Tamil. When we have 2 countries, Korean and Japanese, Tamil is one of the state in India. So instead of Tamil, it should be India.
We teach a Tamil class, though, language.
Tamil class, then you say Tamil in bracket India. Because Tamil is not a country.
Duly noted, thank you. On page 14, Quickly, under the tactic of new collections, you're working on creating a baby/toddler literacy page. Any quick comment on that? It sounds interesting, but,
For resources, it's for parents.
okay, oh, for parent, okay. On goal number 6, promotion, the tactic of social media, there is a YouTube video that was created for last year's community read.
For the one that we just had
Yeah.
in November, yes.
And then the tactic about downloadable resources, something called Odillo. What is Odillo?
Adillo is another source for downloading books through TLN that we are going to be adding. So it's another option for getting more downloadable since it's become very popular. We have Overdrive, but the library network has negotiated with a library actually out in Colorado that's taken it upon themselves to work with and create Odillo and allow libraries to get downloaded materials better and more copies of them. It's very difficult for us. The publishers are making it very difficult for libraries to get involved in the downloadable scene. So this is another opportunity for us to get a hold of materials for electronic use.
Great. And then on page 15, goal number 7 about fundraising, and again, the director will give you more detail in her report, but they launched the digital coupons on December 5th.
That was at Light Up the Night.
Are there any questions or comments about the goals and our progress to date? Hearing none, the board was kind enough to allow me to move item B here, and I was so pleasantly surprised when I saw this in the package. We had, and this is on pages 50 through 57, we had an independent, informed, third-party evaluation. And this is something to me that's more important than analyzing the library usage statistics. Because this says, based upon industry standards or what generally accepted library practices are, our library, affectionately called TPL
Correct.
throughout, was rated and evaluated on several categories, including the layout of the facility, the reference service for specific users, staff approachability, and the conclusion. And if you haven't read this yet, I would recommend take your time and go through it because it speaks to everything that we've tried to accomplish with our customer service orientation, that somebody, again, independent of our library, watching the interaction between our staff and our patrons, just reinforce the idea how courteous everybody is, how knowledgeable, how professional, okay? I want to make sure it gets in the minutes. We as a board appreciate the staff for being able to translate their individual comportment into tangible action as it relates to the constituency that we're serving. It made me very proud to read the results. Trustee Stirring.
I read it. I think I read it more than once. I couldn't tell it was our library. I thought it was our library, but I couldn't tell it was library. It kept talking about an anonymous library, an undisclosed library.
They had to do that through the class that they were doing, that they, couldn't actually write the actual library
But
in it.
it's not anonymous anymore.
It's not, because I reached out to the student and, asked if I could be sharing this more globally.
How many 55,000 square foot, two-story buildings with glass walls?
Get up to 22.
I do completely understand that, but I think that you have to be fairly knowledgeable of our library to understand that, and it might make sense to say this is our library. It doesn't say that if you
No,
read the minutes, it doesn't say that.
Yeah, but yes.
Yeah.
Julie, can you comment on, we don't know the person who did this. Can you give us a little background of whoever did this, what their qualifications were to, because we like what they wrote.
Sure.
Yeah, I'm just curious, was this their level of expertise in doing this analysis?
This is an actual library student. So
Okay.
this is someone who was charged by the professor, Dr. Pekoski from Wayne State University, to spend a number of hours on our reference desks and come in completely as, open-minded to look at and observe a public library. So what she's giving you is exactly what she observed, what she understands, knowing that she's taking classes currently and learning about library science and the field of library science. She was then able to put, her thoughts. I love and appreciate, I think that's one of the reasons why I shared it with you, is she documents very, very good, the student, to actual facts and information of journals, of information that is out there in the library field that can compare to and credit what's going on with our library, but also in the field. So she's done her research as a student to understand these are what some standards are and what's out there in library land, and yet this library meets those and exceeds in a number of ways. So yes, she is a student currently going through. This was a cold call where a student calls and says, I'm currently in a class and I picked your library. Would you mind if I came and I sat on your reference desks and talked to your staff and did an observation? Being a Wayne State graduate, I tend to do that with a lot of students that call me because I like to give back to the school that I came from. And it also gives these students an opportunity to get in. We get a chance to get to know them sometimes. But I can tell you right now, the current intern that we have working for us is a Wayne State student now. And she's been interning and is now working, she's now being paid to work for us too. We got to see her in a practicum position and watch her and see how she did with patrons and how she reacted. And now it's for us, it's a nice way to also look at possible employment too. But it's giving back to the school, but getting some feedback completely from, someone who had not been in our library before and could just sit and give some observations. So I think it's a great unbiased way of receiving some feedback, which that's why I wanted you to see it.
Great.
That moves us right to item 11, Director's Report. So if you want to fishtail on
Sure.
any of these things we've already touched on.
I would be happy to do that. So page 42, just to reiterate, we had a wonderful 5th annual community read that took place on November 18th, Tuesday, and then Wednesday, the 19th, was an opportunity to go to the high school at Novi High and bring the author there as well. We had, as you can see from the numbers, we had 823 is my number there, but I just received numbers from the high school, and they have an additional 22 checkouts. So we're looking at 845 currently checkouts of the book since August through November. Which I think is fantastic that you have that many people, checking out the book and reading. We hosted Karen Joy Fowler. The book was We Are All Completely Beside Ourselves. She was a fantastic presenter. We received a lot of great feedback from the attendees at the event. Close to 200 were in our meeting room on that evening. And this has been a great partnership with our neighboring libraries, with Northville, Wixom, Salem South Lyon, and the Lyon Township Libraries. We now gear ourselves up for January, and we start to read again, the committee, and start to look for another book. It gets harder every year, and we always say to ourselves, how are we going to top this? Because really the author was fantastic again. And you never know, sometimes you can read a great book, but you also have to mirror and fit in a good presenter, because that can really, not be a good thing when you have the event then that night, and if they're not good at speaking and sharing their story, that can become difficult. But we've been very blessed to have the authors we've had in the last 5 years, and it be a very successful event for all of our communities, and we will continue it. The next thing to mention is the Novi Coupon Club, which is in partnership with My Coupon Genie. So we launched it on Friday, December 5th. And actually for the library, it's on the website. We've done e-newsletter. We're working with the city. I'm still going out and meeting with businesses because the goal is 200. We're close to about 50 that have come on board since we started this in mid-October. So I think we're doing very well and we've had a very good reception from our businesses to join and be a part of this. So if you haven't, I encourage you to download the My Coupon Genie app, which is free, and then take advantage of all the great discounts that we're getting from our business partners. This will go on for a full year. You can see the article. We obviously made the Novi News, gave a very good idea of what it is and how people can take part in it at no cost to the consumer. Then there's a flyer, just to give you an idea of some of the businesses that are on board so far on page 45. We'll continue with, we've now added it to our print receipt, so when people check out from the self-check machines, they get a print receipt if they opt to take one home with them. It's at the bottom, and it's encouraging people to download the app. We'll also do a one-time blast of our library card holders in January to let them know that this is an opportunity to get discounts in our community and for Novi businesses. So it continues to grow and get better month by month. So we're doing very well. These 2 weeks right here with the holiday, it's been slow just because we know that the businesses are very busy when it comes to retail. And so we'll be back in January to be sitting down and working with some more of our Novi businesses. Any questions specific to that, to the Coupon Genie? No? Okay. One thing that I didn't put in the report, but I do want to report on is the fundraiser that we have been doing with the Crawfords, the I Love My Country statue. Just want to give you an update that we are over $10,000 in collecting towards our $12,000 goal. That comes from some very generous donations, one specifically that was received last week from the Kerr Company that's located on 9 Mile. They saw the article in the newspaper, contacted me directly, and I had a meeting with them, and they gave us $1,000 for the statue. So I think that has been a very nice fundraising opportunity for people to get involved in. They seem to love the statue and want to be part of that. And then I also received another generous donation yesterday in the amount of $1,000 as well from an individual. So it's we're doing very well with it. I'm confident that by the end of January we will be close to, if not at our goal for that, and then we can start planning for the ordering and the actual installation for the springtime and coordinate with the Crawfords for an unveiling. I brought you the annual report. So you see the annual report. Had so many things to highlight. This year, I would like to put a kudos out to 2 people. Christine Salvatore, this is our communications person creating this. She's continuing to learn and becoming more creative, taking some classes, learning some new software that allowed her to
Is she
create.
the one we appropriated from the city?
Yes, she is. And she's learning, and this is a wonderful example of her creativity and what's come from some classes she's gone to and just building over a year now that she's been with us, her expertise. Marcia is also another person that needs to be thanked because she is in my office and helping with putting this all together and offering eyes. So nothing gets by Marcia with a second eye for detail and for changes or commas and vocabulary, anything. She's our final set of eyes. So it's pretty exciting when you can write up something like this, and we've just got so many great things that went on this past year. I know we're already 6 months into our new year, and you go back thinking, gosh, we did all that, and we're already 6 months in, and there's already so many exciting things that I can't put in the report because I have to keep it for the 14-15. So it's...
When I got my copy of this, I thought it was a really nice compilation
Good.
of what had happened in a very small space, and I liked the layout. I thought it was very well done.
Good, so it's something new, so, and we're trying, we still do it in-house, we try to keep it as economical as possible. I know it could go glossy, I know it could be, 50 pages, there's a lot of things but I'm really about making it simple and making it to the point of what we want to highlight. So I'm very happy and pleased with what she had done for us.
Can we scan it and have it run in a loop in the monitors in the library?
We can, it is already on the website, but
I
yes.
know, but in the monitors, well,
Yes.
people there?
Yep, we most definitely can. I'll make a note of that for us to do that. Let's see, so then we had the report. After that, Basically, just the reports from Margie and the report from Mary Ellen and statistics. We're happy to take any questions related to that. If you have any, please let me know. Anything? No? Then there's just a
Whoa,
report
whoa,
from,
whoa, wait.
I'm sorry.
You can't go that quick.
Oh,
I know he's gonna look at me.
yes, go ahead. I'll now turn it
I
over to
mean-
Mary Ellen.
According to the Farmer's Almanac, the polar vortex will get here sooner than later. Are you getting cooperation with the vendor with respect to the air curtain?
We are, and we're very, very close. In fact, on Monday, I sent out a message saying, it works. And we had a little hiccup right after that. So I spoke too soon. But we are very close. There's one little piece that, it works, it does
Yes.
work. But
Today
it's,
was a great example.
yeah. A repair needs to be made to one of the sensors that lets it operate with the doors opening. It does blow hot air right now. It can do that. But it needs this final adjustment, and then I think we're there.
The great response today, though, is the heaters were not on at the circulation desk. One of my staff who was wearing a skirt said to me, I'm wearing a skirt today and the heaters aren't on and it's working. So they are warmer than they have been in the past as well. So we know, and they know that Mary Ellen's team and the facilities team have done, they've been working on this almost daily, comes changes and improvements to it, and they know that we're almost there as well. So we have a new thermostat that was installed. We have to make sure we get a cage for that so that no one can tamper with it. So that's the next thing to do, but I think we're almost there.
What's the length of the warranty for the service on that unit?
I will have to check. I believe it's a year, but I can't say that with certainty, so.
I guess the reason I ask is we obviously have had difficulty getting it properly installed and properly up and running. It makes me wonder, are we gonna run into, some big expenses, I have no idea,
Right.
a year later? Is there any possibility, due to the fact that they've stumbled getting it up and running, that 1 year either start from when it's finally working right, which I'm assuming that's when it would start from, or even an extension of that?
We can definitely,
It won't hurt to ask.
right, absolutely we will.
It has to start from the day you take over. You have not taken over yet.
No,
You're
and we
you're
haven't
still
paid
working.
invoice,
Yeah.
correct.
No, you have not paid anything.
Correct.
And
That's
you have
correct.
not taken over yet, because they're still working on that. What the trustee is talking about, that the day you take over, the warranty starts from there for 12 months or whatever. And when you pay, do you keep some retainage from that final payment?
No,
No.
we've never done that.
You never did, but why not you consider that?
I don't think we can. I can check into it, but
Why you cannot? Why
It's
you cannot?
usually not on those type of projects.
yeah,
Beg
it's,
your pardon?
It's not usually on that type of a project that you have retainage.
right. This was buying a unit and having it installed.
Yeah.
But you are talking to a contractor, you didn't buy the unit directly, you bought from the contractor. What I'm saying is, since it is tweaking and this and that, if when you pay, but since you do not have it now at the moment, but I'm talking about for future project, you should have some 10% retainage for some time. Because, you don't know when this will happen. It has taken 2-3 months to tweak the whole thing. So that's what I'm asking. So it
We'll
should
look
be
into it.
written in the specification that we will keep 10% or 15% till 3 months or from the day we take over. You should keep your upper hand, not let the contractor runs you.
Well, we're not signing a contract with them, but I see what you
But you
understand.
have
We
a
can look
purchase
into
order.
it. We
You
do.
can write in your specification, before you give the purchase order to this guy, this is the thing you. Is
I'll-
it true though?
Yeah.
You would really just make it part of your payment terms.
Right.
Where, 80% at time of completion, 20% 90 days later, provided.
Provided
yada,
it's-
yada, yada.
We definitely can look into it. No, thank you.
Changing tune for a second. On the in-service day,
Yes,
I see that somebody was prudent enough to have the windows washed.
Yes.
So it wouldn't be an inconvenience to the patrons. Good
Right.
thinking.
we do plan that way, especially for, and cleanings as well.
Yep.
That's all through Mary Ellen's
Yep.
department.
Good
Yep.
job.
Thank you. Although we don't have a lot of opportunity to
Because we're
do
open.
that.
I know, I'm
Yeah.
saying, and we don't arbitrarily close the library. So you
Yes.
multitask.
We do.
That's a good thing.
Yep.
I have a question.
Go ahead.
What is a holiday tree?
Holiday tree.
Yes.
The Friends donated a large tree for us for our lobby. So this year, which it was pre-lit, that was a few years ago when we started offering the Light Up the Night and being a partnership with the city. And so this year, we decided to encourage our patrons to come in and decorate it if they'd like to. So the tree, it's in our lobby, and so the tree is being decorated. We have little kids. In fact, we just got a wonderful tweet from a mom who came in, and her little girl hung an ornament the other day on the tree and showed her hanging her ornament for the library. They're actually donating the ornaments to us so that it can be put up like that every year.
Where I was going with that was, is it a Christmas tree?
Well, I don't call it a Christmas tree because we have a number of holidays. We have a Jewish holiday, we have Kwanzaa, and so we recognize different diversities, different holidays going on at the same time. So we call it a holiday tree so that other people can put different types of things for their cultures on the tree. It's not necessarily Christmas that we're celebrating, but we're celebrating the holidays that tend to be around this time.
Could we not have a menorah?
We do, that's why we're calling it a holiday tree, so that a menorah can hang on it.
No, I know, could we
People
not have a separate menorah to show people that are not of the Jewish faith what a menorah?
We do. We have a display case that has some of those items as well in the library. Our main display case on the first floor.
Okay.
Any other questions? Hearing none, then we'll move to the next item, which is committee reports, which I'm not aware of any, but,
There are none.
okay. Then we move to item 13, our second public comment. Again, I will ask, anybody is given the opportunity to speak and address the board, and we will give you our full courtesy and attention. Hearing none, then, thank you. Matters for board discussion. You have, under item 15, board action, accept the updated version of the library budget. Given the information that we were given and that there is concern whether the budget's been amended or not, I'd like to defer this to next meeting.
Well, if you look, there's no changes to numbers. It's not, this is not.
Oh, I disagree. The reports that we were given shows the amended budget, and that's what the actual performance is being measured against.
The expenditures were less than.
Yeah.
There's a
Oh, I see.
$65,000
I see.
differential.
Oh, so you
I
want
don't
to
wanna
wait
ignore
until
that.
those come back?
I want to
Okay.
know that
Yep.
the budget that we adopted is
Sure.
still the budget we adopted.
Yes, okay, absolutely.
If I may, the detail, as Carl went through the tax revenue count, where effectively, we've always shown the net.
Yeah.
He's grossing it up, the equivalent to me of going to tab number 1, you can get all the detail. I don't think that requires board action at all.
No.
Because the numbers don't change, that's just the detail in the presentation. So if that's what we were looking to do, I would say I don't believe we need board action. But I agree with President Margolis that budget number has to come back.
Okay,
I certainly wouldn't
Yep.
support any change to the budget based on what we saw here today.
what I changed was just put in the audited numbers, as you can see. Those are the actual audited numbers on page 1920. And I changed, and this was a comment from you, trustee Check, I think 2 meetings ago, actually, was, it's called audited, which is the green column, and then approved, which is the pink column. So that's all that was changed at this time, but yes, we'll wait, and I'll bring it back in January and win those numbers.
On that topic, I for one switched offices, and so I left my colored printer, now I'm back to black and white, so.
So now you,
So now reds and
Yes.
greens and yellows are not coming through.
so you definitely needed to say audited and approved.
And the red numbers are very shaded and very light.
Okay.
And I know that, I think that report that Marcia gave us that showed the monthly.
Yes,
entries,
you're not gonna see.
The font, it's, It's very tough.
Okay, very good.
I agree with holding off on that.
Sure.
Because, I mean, it would be interesting to see, how did we have a almost $40,000 reduction in data processing? And why did gas and oil go up $650? And, I mean, he seemed to imply that they came from somewhere. I know most of us would like to know where they came from.
Well, the gas and oil is a new,
Broke that out of a different
correct,
category.
you're right.
Okay.
And that was in that detail that I gave you with some of the notes that Jessica provided to me. That's why I gave you pages 24 through 26, just so you could see some of the notations. So,
Oh, okay.
yeah,
Yeah, there's still, what, a
Yeah.
$60,000, $65,000?
yeah, she's just, I didn't notice that, but it's just a missing thing from our report, so I will call her. That's an easy change. I can't see why that would be a problem, so.
Now,
Yep.
please forgive me, I'm getting older and I don't remember so good. But one of our goals for the year was to come up with a strategy or a game plan for reducing the deficit by at least 20%. Is that something that we will expect the second half of the year, or is that something that'll come up during budget discussions and be implemented as of July 1st?
That is, what I'm working on is to make it happen for the next fiscal. So it was to have it ready for 15-16. And yes, I am working towards that.
Okay. Gentlemen, are there any other questions, comments, issues that we need to bring for discussion? Hearing none, I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved?
Second.
All in favor of adjournment?
Aye.
8:36.